Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 8 of What If Deku Had Green Lightning. If you guys enjoyed this What If and want to see part 9 of it, comment down below and let me know. Then go ahead and check out other What Ifs in the channel. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. Izuku woke up with a start to his alarm. It was much more pleasant than present Mick, but still not pleasant. Regardless, he quickly got changed and made his way downstairs, actually sitting with the class for breakfast. Hey Izuku. Mineta started, did you get to Faye? Mineta was abruptly cut off by a very powerful if short-ranged explosion from Bakugo. Izuku turned to Todoroki, and was going to ask what Mineta meant when he got patted on the head by the boy with red and white hair. Izuku pouted, but continued with the morning, talking to Iida and Todoroki about what they thought today's exam would entail. They figured that it would probably entail some combat, a decision regarding whether it would be better to fight or flee, while still considering damages and abilities. The trio walked to class, where they were instructed to grab their hero costumes and head over to the environment fields, where they met all the teachers standing in front. So, you may be wondering what's going on, and why we're all here. Nizu said, popping out of Aizawa-sensei's scarf, well, in short, your exam will be fighting us teachers. Several students at the lower end of the class began panicking, as Aizawa-sensei picked up where Nizu left off. You have been put in predetermined pairs and assigned to fight a teacher. You can pass by either placing a pair of these cuffs on the teacher in question, or have one of you go through the gate to pass. Of course, you will be graded individually. These assignments have been made at my discretion, taking into account your own strengths, weaknesses and interpersonal relationships. So Kirishima and Sato, you two are against Cementus. Asui and Tokoyami, you two are against Ectoplasm. Ojiro and Iida, you guys will be fighting Power Loader. Todoroki and Yoirozu, you will be against myself. Aizawa-sensei went on to list all the other fights, before he got to Izuku and Bakugo. Izuku and Bakugo, you will be against me, All Might announced. Both boys were incredibly nervous. Furthermore, we will be wearing high-density weights to add half our body weight, and that's really heavy. Hopefully this will slightly balance the playing field. Fights will occur in that order, and you may watch your plan. Good luck, and plus ultra. Aizawa-sensei finished, lazily raising his fist. Most teams went together to make a plan, with only Araka not being able to easily discuss with their teammate. Izuku and Bakugo went off, and Izuku pulled out a notebook. You planned for this shit? Bakugo asked, already knowing the answer. No. Izuku replied, before flipping to a certain page, I have a dozen plans for this. 2 primary, each leading into 5 fallback plans. So we run, or we're gonna fight. Bakugo told him. Well, you're gonna have to follow my lead, but this is what we're gonna start with. Eventually they returned to the main viewing room, where Araka already was. In there, they found that they had just missed Kirishima and Sato lose to Cementus, and were watching a giant ectoplasm clone attacking Tsu and Tokoyami. Bakugo watched in silence whilst Izuku was writing in his notebook, primarily about the heroes in action. Occasionally he and Recovery Girl would talk about various strategies, or she would tell them what was being said, but mostly she would be able to give insight as to why certain members were paired together. As Tokoyami and Tsu finished up, Izuku asked Recovery Girl something. So, if I may ask, why were Koch-chan and I put together? Well, young man, the two of you have a unique relationship. However, as staff we have yet to see either of you in true action together, either against each other or working together. Furthermore, you both have great potential, and as neither of you are overly reliant on your quirk, nor do either of you have glaring flaws, we wish to push you to the top of your game. Recovery Girl explained. Izuku nodded, before turning back to the screen to see Iida and Ojiro's. Interesting teamwork in order to outpace Power Loader's pitfalls, eventually passing after Ojiro was thrown through the escape gate. At this point, Nejire and the rest of the big 3 came in. Oh. Hey guys. Izuku called out, as Bakugo also walked over to him. Hey man. Hope we haven't missed your turn yet. Mirio said. Nope, we're yet to absolutely freaking destroy All Might. Bakugo told him, wearily eyeing Recovery Girl. Ooh, you guys have to fight All Might. Good luck. Wait, is it just you two against him? How do you win? Do you have a plan? What is it? Nejire asked. Tamaki was about to get her to calm down when Mirio took his hand, whispering, Izuku can deal with it, and it's a good chance for them to get closer, as he took the manifest user to watch the screens by Recovery Girl, who was chuckling, oh young love. Yeah, it's just the two of us. We can win by running or cuffing him. We do have a plan, and it's not really possible to explain, so you'll just have to wait and see, and hopefully it works out. Izuku told Nejire, who was bouncing side to side slightly. Bakugo went up to Izuku at the same time Mirio took Nejire's attention. Hurry up and confess already. Bakugo whispered to Izuku, and Mirio mouthed to Nejire. They both turned fairly red and backed away from their respective tormentors to back into each other. They both jumped, turned around, and found themselves face to face, nose to nose. Their blushes deepened as they jumped backwards, Nejire narrowly missing Tamaki's discreet tentacle, dedicated to remove that gap of a few inches. Mirio, Tamaki and Bakugo collectively sighed, before turning to the screen. They just witnessed Mina and Denki get crushed by the principal, a creature with scary smarts. Wait, it's his fault I had to do harder exams. Izuku screamed, pointing at the creature on screen. Nezu just nodded, as though he knew exactly the realization Izuku just came to. Recovery Girl chuckled as the somber-looking boy was being patted on the head by Nejire, before confirming his beliefs. Yes, young man, that is correct, but I believe you will have to wait until the holidays for anything to come of that. Izuku twitched, before sighing and curling up in a corner, no longer paying attention to the fight on screen, where Kota just sent a bunch of bugs to give President Mick nightmares for weeks, much to the dismay of Aizawa-sensei, who would have to lose more sleep trying to comfort the man. Izuku whined quietly, rocking back and forth as Nejire stroked his hair. Come Minetta's and Sero's fight against Midnight, Izuku had recovered, but neither he nor Bakugo were paying attention as they were discussing the plan. Or Bakugo was nodding along while Izuku was mumbling. The other already passed, or failed groups in the cases of Uraraka, Kirishima, Sato, Aoyama, Mina and Kaminari. Bakugo had a confident smirk as he waited impatiently for Mineta to lose already, while Izuku began panicking. Mineta managed to pull a win out of nowhere as Bakugo began fixing his gauntlets, and Izuku was preparing his special capture bracelet tape thing, hands shaking. His quirk had reached high levels of charge, so when Nejire started approaching him, he waved her back as it was fairly dangerous. She came up to him, ignoring his warnings and gave him a hug. You'll do fine, Izuku, she told him, before going back to the screen. Izuku.exe crashed briefly and managed to miss her blush, as the rest of the class were debating the best way to force the two together already, and Bakugo began dragging his now slightly more reactive brother. But it was too almost certain doom. Almost. The two students made their way to the testing field, and started the plan. Oi you shitty nerd. I'm gonna do all this, and you can't fucking stop me. Bakugo screamed. But Koch-chan, Izuku started, reaching a hand out when suddenly the wind picked up. Oh boy. The wind was intense, and Izuku wrapped the capture device around Bakugo and a handrail that was somehow remaining the ground, holding the two of them in place when All Might appeared. Now young heroes, if you're going to treat this like an exam and argue, you will be Sark. All Might was cut off by Izuku swinging Bakugo into him using the capture rope, the boy's feet slamming straight into his face. All Might realized that additionally, in the brief time Bakugo made contact with him, Izuku had established a physical connection that briefly shocked All Might. However, it was not enough for the green-haired UA student to stop All Might for any useful length of time. Despite this, it was enough for the boys to dash out of All Might's sight, or rather Izuku to run as fast as he could, whilst dragging Bakugo along, by winding up his capture bracelet scar thing. All Might was a little annoyed at being played like that, but by the time he had turned around, the boys were long gone, hidden down an alley. Izuku and Bakugo quickly prepared the next stage of their plan. Bakugo had much stronger shoulder muscles, because of his quirk's recoil, so they just had to wait for All Might to be in position. Izuku counted down in his head, and when he hit 0 he tapped Bakugo, who launched the green-haired boy out of the alley, with a powerful throw and explosion, as Izuku began powering his quirk, whilst Bakugo followed behind with a series of explosions originating from his feet. The two came out of the alley, and Izuku missed All Might by mere milliseconds. Thankfully, he was able to react in time as he grabbed All Might back, and managed to throw the man down, if only barely. In his moments of surprise, Izuku jumped away as Bakugo took his place, hovering over All Might who was currently face down. Bakugo promptly pulled the pin on his right gauntlet, the powerful explosion searing the ground, and pushing the muscular man further down. Bakugo then flew away as in a matter of seconds Izuku came back, trying to cuff All Might. Unfortunately, All Might, being almighty, managed to drag himself out of the pit, and grabbed Izuku's hand, just before he managed to cuff him. All Might took the cuffs and crushed them, much to everyone's dismay. Aizawa was more than a little annoyed. He was watching the final fight between Izuku, Bakugo and All Might. The boys were working incredibly well together, moving as though they had rehearsed together 1,000 times, and if they were against literally any other teacher, they would be able to easily overcome them. But they were up against All Might for a reason, he suppose, who apparently still had no clue how to teach. Aizawa and Nezu had personally watched a few of All Might's earlier lessons, but were disappointed to say the least. The man seemed to not really realize that being a hero and being a teacher were very, very different job descriptions. But this was the most disappointing. All teachers were instructed to make sure that the students, at all times, would have at least 2 ways of winning, 1 escape route and 1 capture method, as to make sure it was at least possible. The point of the exam was not to crush the kids, but to make them feel crushed and allow them to grow. But this was making it straight up impossible. Aizawa sighed again, looking over at the other students, watching their reactions. It was a little amusing watching the ever bubbly Nejire be concerned and silent, worry evident on her usually cheery face. He hid a smirk as he knew what was going through her head. He was so winning that bet with Mick. Back with our currently battling students, Izuku realized All Might was rapidly moving into a baseball pitcher's stance, but just before he could completely wind Izuku back, the boy began to expel large amounts of green lightning directly into All Might. Continuous directed discharge. Intensity 4. Izuku yelled. It was enough to cause the massive man to freeze as he gritted his teeth. He may not be nearly as strong as he was in his prime, but he couldn't combat non-physical attacks. He could only wait until the other wore themselves out enough for him to be free. In the process, Bakugo was propelling himself towards the gate. He may be headstrong, but he wasn't stupid. Izuku's plan relied on the teachers keeping both victories possible, but with the cuff out of the question, they fell to a backup plan. Izuku would stall for time, using his quirk to keep All Might stationary as long as possible, whilst Bakugo would rush for the gate. It was unfortunate this plan didn't last for long. All Might quickly became desensitized to the electrocution, and Izuku didn't realize this fast enough. Unfortunately, All Might used the boy like a javelin, aiming him and throwing him at the currently flying Bakugo. Koch-chan. Izuku yelled, trying to get the blonde's attention so they could dodge in time. Despite this, it was too little too late as the two collided, causing the two to tumble to the ground, the exit within their sight. Both of them took in the destruction that All Might had caused at the beginning, before getting up and the two of them limping toward the exit. Koch-chan. I know how to do this faster, Izuku said. I know what you're going to say. And no. We do this together, or not at fucking all. Bakugo said sternly. Izuku sighed, relenting. His brother may be more agreeable to him than to most people, but was headstrong nonetheless. Fine. But take this end of my capture weapon, Izuku said, handing an end to Bakugo. Keep it loose, and we'll be able to catch All Might with it when he shows up. Bakugo just nodded, the boys lazily dragging the weapon as they slowly worked into a jog, both of them doing their best to ignore their throbbing headaches. Izuku's much worse, but being much better at ignoring it. Various quirk drawbacks and other pains, with probably at least one cracked rib each. Regardless, they pushed forwards as the two continued, before Izuku heard a sudden shockwave. It was directed downwards, but it could only mean one thing. He knew that All Might wasn't the best at controlling himself in the air, so once their plan was in motion, it would hopefully work. Hopefully. Izuku told Bakugo as much of the plan as he could whilst preparing it. All Might, because he would have punched facing the other way, wouldn't see what was happening whilst approaching, and as such wouldn't be able to react until it was too late. There was a second shockwave as Izuku finished explaining. Bakugo threw a gauntlet to Izuku, who put it on his left arm before using both arms to pull the capture weapon tight. He began spinning, the blonde spinning through the air as a result, as his quirk was crackling in his hands, using more explosions on his feet to make the spin faster. Then, Izuku released Bakugo. The blonde saw the target and used a couple explosions to direct himself, as he kicked All Might straight across the jaw again. Erg. The muscular man let out an exclamation as Bakugo made contact, flinching on instinct. This meant he failed to realize that Bakugo continued circling All Might, carried by the momentum. By the time All Might was paying attention again, it was too late as he was already completely wrapped by Izuku's capture weapon. What? All Might asked, trying to move. Because of the way he was wrapped, unfortunately, meant that if he were to move his arms, it would pull the capture weapon into his back. So, he was trapped for now, as he tried to wriggle out. In the meantime, Izuku had powered up and was moving at incredible speed towards the gate, Bakugo not too far behind. Both boys couldn't go their fastest because of their prior injuries. It didn't take too long for All Might to catch up to them, and Izuku heard the gust of wind. He nodded to Bakugo, and the two turned around. They pointed the gauntlets at the direction All Might was coming from. And both of them pulled the pin. There was a slight moment of delay, before each gauntlet unleashed massive explosions. Izuku heard a slight pop come from his shoulder, but ignored it, adrenaline running through his system as the two promptly turned back around. The exit was maybe 15 seconds away, for Izuku at full speed, so closer to 30 at the moment. Regardless, the students continued on their journey until they heard All Might punch again. He had managed to get one arm out of the capture weapon, and was using the punches to propel himself like a missile. Izuku saw this coming, and acting on instinct, pushed Bakugo closer to the gate as he felt All Might collide with his back. Izuku tumbled with All Might pressing him further into the concrete. The concrete, in turn, cracked as though it was hit by a meteor, with Izuku's face and upper body becoming heavily bruised and cut as he was pressed harshly into the ground. The boy could faintly hear Bakugo screaming as he felt his consciousness fade, disappearing like his rib structure. Bakugo was livid. He felt his anger completely take over as he watched All Might push Izuku deep into the concrete, as though the boy was actually a villain. Whilst the teachers were given weights, they seemed to forget that whilst they may be slower as a result, they had increased mass. Increased mass also increased force, and when someone is All Might levels of strong, the acceleration decrease from a couple hundred kilograms is nothing when compared to the force he would get. Furthermore, he was certain that teachers were decidedly not meant to break the cuffs, as seen during the previous fights. This man had no clue how to be a mentor, let alone be a teacher. But right now, Bakugo saw more red than he had seen in his life, and one of his closest associates, read friends, was shitty hair. This fucker was meant to give them an exam whilst having no idea what a teacher remotely did, with no prior experience, and seemingly no clue of other people's limits. And this fucker, with no remorse, just knocked his brother unconscious after cracking at least a dozen ribs, and adding maybe half a dozen new scars. Bakugo twitched and turned around, a terrifying glare in his eyes that seemed to cause all bastard to freeze in place. Good. This fucker had no idea what was about to happen. With a scream of burn in hell, Bakugo launched himself with powerful explosions from his feet, and grabbed Izuku before All Might could react, the boy groaning in pain with being picked up, resulting in another twitch from Bakugo. Bakugo gently placed the boy to the side as he held up his remaining gauntlet, firing at All Bastard before launching himself at the muscular pro, cupping his open palms as he created a massive explosion. Fucking die. Bakugo screamed, his shoulders almost dislocating from the recoil of unleashing such an unnaturally powerful blast, one larger than he had ever. Bakugo didn't bother waiting for the smoke to clear, as he ran to his brother, careful not to aggravate any of the wounds, as he gently carried his brother over the last threshold. He carefully placed Izuku down on the ground, the shallow rise and fall of their chest, a faint reminder of their life as Bakugo himself fell unconscious. The last thing he remembered seeing was Shoji carrying two stretchers, Mirio, Nejire and Tamaki, with Recovery Girl being carried there by Aizawa-sensei, the racing pro hero going over to All Might with a very, very scary glare. Izuku woke up in Recovery Girl's office. This is a familiar sight, Izuku thought, not even bothering to sit up or turn. He knew it would hurt. A lot. He remembers being just shoved into the ground by All Might, faintly feeling a lot of ribs cracking and several gashes opening on his head before hearing his brother scream, which, though not unusual, the reasoning this time was different, before feeling his consciousness slip away. He shifted slightly and winced. Yeah, okay, everything still hurt. Recovery Girl came in, before talking to the boy. Well, young man, you have a few scars, but are very lucky to have no permanent damage, Recovery Girl said, looking at her clipboard. Izuku started talking before wincing. Yeah, don't try and talk at the moment. Your ribs aren't fully put back together, as you had no energy. I had to perform surgery to get them in a position where they wouldn't have potential to cause any lung punctures. It's almost night, but you'll stay here. And before you try and ask, Recovery Girl cut the boy off as his mouth opened again. Your brother is fine. I already sent him back to his own dorm. He insisted on staying, but I told him he would either lie down in one of the beds to rest or rest in his own dorm room. He said he knew he'd be fine, but she refused to leave. Recovery Girl finished, before pointing at the girl in a chair looking over Izuku's bed. She had fallen asleep, slouching in the chair. Izuku could only turn his neck to look, before looking back up as Recovery Girl added some more things. I'll heal you somewhat with my quirk before I leave, and you both have permission to stay here for tonight. We figured you needed it, and she was too worried for any of us to be capable of pulling her away. That and if we let her roam free, she might end up going hunting for All Might. Recovery Girl chuckled a little. The boy in the bed blushed somewhat, which calmed down quickly. So when do you leave? Izuku asked, wondering when he'd be able to sit up and talk without wanting to scream. Eager for some one-on-one time. Recovery Girl teased, watching the boy blush heavily as she continued. No, I understand. I'll go bring some food for the two of you and heal you after that, so in about 10 minutes. Recovery Girl said, leaving. Izuku sighed a little later, causing another pain as he looked up. He winced a little more at this, when as if on cue, Nejire woke up. Izuku. She screamed, before looking at the boy. Are you okay? He'll be fine, dearie. I'll just heal him some more, and hopefully he'll be able to hold a conversation without feeling too much pain. In the meantime, take these from me. Recovery Girl said, handing a couple of bags to the girl with periwinkle hair. Nejire watched with concern in her eyes as Recovery Girl made her way over to Izuku, kissing him with her quirk. Recovery Girl stifled a laugh as she saw the slightest flash of envy in Nejire's eyes, before leaving the two students be. Once Recovery Girl left, Nejire turned her attention to Izuku, who was struggling to sit up. Moving quickly, Nejire reached over for the switch to raise the head of the bed. After the bed agonizingly and slowly raised itself, Nejire was able to get a good look at Izuku. He had a couple scars on his face, and whilst the standard hospital gown covered most of his chest from the glimpse of his collarbone Nejire could get, there were several more. She clenched her fist, looking down. She supposed it came with the job, but from All Might no less, and whilst learning to be a hero. What made it worse was that whilst her best friend, she saddened a little at that but ignored it, was being effectively maimed, she couldn't do anything but watch until Recovery Girl snapped her and the rest of the students out of it. Izuku must have noticed this, because Nejire felt a warm, and very shaky, hand being placed on her shoulder. Izuku? Nejire asked, looking up at him. Is there something wrong, Nejire? Izuku asked, voice rasping but concern proving most of all. No. Nejire said, trying to smile at him, but failing. Then, why are you crying? Izuku asked, his voice starting to return to normal, but with concern laced deep. Nejire's only response was to raise a hand to her cheek, only now fully realizing that her breeding had resulted in her expressing her sadness physically. She fully accepted it at this point, and let the tears flow freely as she poured her heart out to her best friend and the boy she loved. I felt bad not being able to stop this, Nejire said, words punctuated by sobs and finishing by gesturing to Izuku. The boy, ignoring his pains and going full hero if only in a different way, slowly leaned over to her and gently folded his arms behind her neck, the lowest he could go. Nejire took this as a sign, moving her chair closer and laying her head on his legs, sobbing more. Izuku remained silent, gently stroking her long hair, the dinner forgotten. They remained this way for a good 5 minutes, before Nejire's sobbing steadily slowed, and Izuku spoke. Well, I understand what you're saying. If the same happened to you, I'd be distraught. Izuku started, empathizing with her, and I'd probably be doing the same as you. But there's going to be times when we can't do anything, Izuku said, causing Nejire to look up at the boy who was now looking at his clenched fist, and it's about what we do afterwards. Whether it's what we learn, or what we do to apologize, or just make the best of the situation. Izuku leaned placed a hand on Nejire's, causing her to blush slightly as Izuku beamed at her, and with nothing to apologize for, let's just make the best of this. Nejire hugged Izuku, being careful to do so gently, a smile on her face despite her red eyes. Thank you, Izuku, Nejire said, just embracing the boy. She was ready to pull away, but just as she did, in the spur of the moment she briefly kissed the boy on the cheek, resulting her to blush madly. Although, it was amusing to watch Izuku's reaction, his blush had reached new levels. The boy seemed to just have completely crashed, his eyes wide and mouth agape and hands frozen in motion. Nejire giggled and, ignoring her own blush, started serving the food into a portion for Izuku and a portion for herself. By the time she was done, Izuku had regained some semblance of functionality, despite the strong blush she held, and admittedly Nejire did still have a faint blush herself. Nejire passed over a plate of food to Izuku, who shyly took it, and quickly placed it on the table nearby, as his hands were really shaky. And silence fell over the two, although not awkward it wasn't exactly comfortable either, with a question looming over them. Nejire was dreading that moment, and of course, it came as soon as Izuku finished eating. Nejire? Izuku asked, looking at his phone before looking back at her, and Nejire's heart began racing. It's only 6 p.m. and there's no school tomorrow, so do you want to continue watching that anime? Nejire let out a very loud sigh of relief, and Izuku's eyebrow raised before she dashed out. Sounds good, Izuku. I'll go get my laptop. She yelled over her shoulder, heading towards the 3 dorms. Eventually she made it there, having had floated most of the way as she made it to the lobby, where she Tamaki and Mirio on the couch, watching a cartoon show together. Star versus the something or other, it wasn't her problem nor did she care. Regardless, she ignored them and ran up to her own room, and grabbed her laptop. She was floating downstairs when Mirio got her attention. So you kissed Izuku on the cheek? Yeah, he was pretty blunt about it. Nejire became a stuttering and blushing mess, eventually managing a squeak that sounded close enough to yes. Mirio chuckled, before continuing. Well, he's been asking people about what that could possibly mean. According to him, Bakugo told him that you're denser than a flipping black hole. Todoroki said never change. Iida said I'm proud of you, Izuku, and I told that Bakugo is right. Hold the swearing. Nejire was blushing, but incredibly relieved that no one had failed in the dense first year as of yet. Suddenly Tamaki's phone pinged, and he read the message aloud. You're my last hope, Tamaki. Can you please tell me why Nejire kissed me on the cheek? Do you know what this could mean? Alright, Nejire, you're either going to tell him tonight, or we'll do it for you. Mirio said, pulling up his messaging with Izuku. No. I'll do it. Just give me like, a few days. Nejire yelled, waving her arms frantically in front of her. Tamaki looked at Mirio, and Mirio held up 3 fingers. You've got 3 days after tonight, Mirio said sternly. Nejire just nodded frantically before literally flying out the door. Izuku groaned in irritation. The only other thing anyone else had sent him other than some vague nonsense was a question from Bakugo if Izuku liked Nejire. Izuku, being the good honest brother, replied honestly with yeses after spouting various key smashes. Bakugo's response was that we are forcing you to do something about that tomorrow. The hard way. Not too long after that, Yorozu sent him a text asking why Bakugo wanted another lock with a single key, and a closed-line phone that could only call one person, Nejire, and would be able to fit under the classroom doors. He then got a notice from Aizawa sensei that he and his friends would be able to use the classroom from about 9 AM to 5 PM tomorrow. Izuku twitched, ignoring the pain that seared through his face as he did so. The next text he received from Bakugo was effectively saying how it was going to go down tomorrow, which Izuku already knew, but Bakugo had a lot more swears in it. Oh well. Nejire floated back into Recovery Girl's office, heading to the room Izuku was staying in, laptop under one hand, phone in the other, as she texted Yayu for a hangout tomorrow. Well, realistically, she needed advice. Like, lots of advice. Disguised as a shopping trip. She closed the door behind her as she slipped her phone into her pocket, having had changed into simple light blue pajamas whilst in her room. When she walked in, Izuku put his phone away and blushed slightly, as he slowly shuffled over slightly in the bed to the right. Nejire blushed when she realized what Izuku was doing, and she just nodded and sat next to him as she set up her laptop. She started the next episode, something about one of the kids needing to beat a PE teacher in a fight, as the two made comments, but eventually Nejire realized she was the only one doing so. She checked the time to see that it was past 8, and unsurprisingly the boy was completely out. She also realized that he was leaning on her shoulder slightly. Nejire blushed, but didn't want to move. Just because it would wake him up, not because I am really comfortable, Mum. Absolutely. 100%. Nejire thought, closing the laptop and laying down to sleep herself, her head resting on Izuku's. It was 9 AM, and Izuku and Nejire woke up to recovery girl coming in and healing Izuku, so he only had scars across his face, mostly horizontally on his cheeks, and various scars on his torso. Nejire bid him farewell, after the two managed to speak. They found the floor and bed sheets very interesting, as she went off to find Yayu. Mirio and Tamaki were both busy with something. Bakugo, for whatever reason, had asked for their help, so she would have to rely on Yayu for advice. It would do for now. Izuku waved goodbye to Nejire, before returning to his own thoughts. There wasn't really much else to do. Except wait for Bakugo. Speak of the devil, Izuku thought as the door exploded open to see Bakugo, Yuirozu, Mirio and Tamaki. Bakugo just smirked as the others rolled their eyes. So? Right now. Bakugo cut Izuku off, before, carefully, dragging the boy out into 1A's class. Izuku just sighed as he was, gently, thrown into the classroom. His phone was slid under the door, and Mirio popped through the locked door using his quirk. So you have to call Nejire and ask her out or admit your feelings. Either or. We're all getting sick of your denseness. Mirio said, surprisingly bluntly. He heard Tamaki mutter something in agreement, Bakugo yell something profane, also in agreement, and could hear Yuirozu also mutter something in agreement. Izuku sighed again, and looked at his phone. He slumped down against the wall and held his head in one hand, phone over the much shakier other with a finger, slowly working his way through the contacts, until his finger hovered over a certain girl with periwinkle hair. You brought your laptop? Mirio asked Tamaki, the two snuggling up as they waited for Izuku to make the call. They knew it would be more than a while. Bakugo chuckled slightly as he gestured for Yuirozu to come sit next to him, with a slightly more violent enemy instead. Apparently the girl could be more than a little aggressive when it was about something she was passionate regarding. Bakugo would realize he was impressed later, but too caught in the argument about why the second season shouldn't exist. Nejire was flopped on a bench next to Yayu, who was trying to console the girl. Yayu had bought a dress and some things for her support course, whereas Nejire was having a crisis. Yayu was trying to comfort the girl, but they were both broken out of their train of thought when Nejire's phone rang. It buzzed once. It buzzed twice. Nejire pulled it out and faintly whispered, Izuku. Before nervously answering. She glared at Yayu, who was giggling, before speaking. Hey Izuku, wait, who's that yelling in the background? Oh, I think it's Yuirozu and Koch-chan arguing with Tamaki and Mirio about which anime is better. It sounds like Mirio and Tamaki think Naruto, whilst Yuirozu and Koch-chan are arguing for Tokyo Ghoul or something. Oh, that last one sounds really edgy. We should watch it sometime. Yeah, sure, but, there's something I, need to tell you. Nejire was blushing slightly at that, deep down knowing what was happening next, but on the surface she was still denying that idea. Sort of. Her head was a mess, and her mind was trying to amalgamate an excessive amount of words that came out as more gibberish. What? What do you need to tell me? Nejire said, her voice peaking hopefully towards the end. Here goes nothing I guess, but I like you, Nejire. Would you like to go on a date? Izuku yelled, confidence somehow peaking while simultaneously dropping. Nejire.exe has crashed. Yayu leaned over and poked the massively blushing Nejire. I'll take the silence as a no, sorry for bothering. Izuku said, but Nejire didn't answer or hear the rest. She had crashed and Yayu was currently taking the phone. Yo, is this Izuku? She asked. Nejire finished rebooting as she realized what had just happened. Great. Well, I think you just broke Nejire, so she'll be responding right about now. Nejire cut Yayu off, a blush covering her face. So. Ow. I think he gets the point. Yayu whispered after pinching the other girl. Anyway, sorry for leaving you hanging. I like you too and would love to. Nejire said, shyly but still excitedly. Wait, really? Izuku said, excitement picking up in his tone. Oh. Awesome. Alright, didn't think I'd get this far. I guess, I'll pick you up from your dorm in a couple days. My class is going to the mall together tomorrow, so is that good? Izuku asked, more excitement evident. Nejire giggled a little, before answering. Sounds good, Izuku. Around 11. MMHM. Alright, I'll see you then. Izuku said excitedly, before hanging up. Nejire took the phone away from her ear and looked at the phone for a moment before it fully sunk in. She pocketed the phone before breathing. She looked at Yayu, who raised an eyebrow, and promptly shook the girl. I got a date with him. Nejire said before going into a mumbling spree. Wait, what should I wear? Should I get him a gift? A card? I should definitely bring money. What else though? Do I need to get a haircut? No, I think it's fine. Wait, I need to check the weather. Do you know what the weather is? I don't know whether or not it mattered though. Get it? Get it. But like, what if I need to do something? I need pickup lines. Yayu help. Nejire ended whining. Yayu blinked before patting her on the head and chuckling a little. Nejire pouted before Yayu spoke. Well, I have no idea about anything. But I think he likes you for you, so you can chill a tad. But how about we spend some time getting you some clothes? It doesn't really matter what, some casual outfits, just things that are you, yeah. Nejire just nodded rapidly, before dragging the other girl back into the mall. Yayu chuckled, Nejire's interest in shopping having had been revived. Izuku knocked on the door, a smile on his face and a blush still on his cheeks, as he informed those on the other side it went well. He heard the lock click as the door opened, and he saw that Yoirozu had created some pole with a key on the end, her and Bakugo engrossed in the show. Similarly, Mirio and Tamaki were watching their own show, except being much closer, Tamaki leaning onto the brighter boy's chest. Izuku chuckled, waiting for the four of them to get up. Mirio and Tamaki bid them farewell as they went back to their own dorms, and once they returned to the one at dorms, Bakugo and Yoirozu went to continue the episode, and Izuku went to his dorm. He pulled his bed down, then flopped onto it, face down, in the pillow, and screamed. It wasn't upset like he thought it would be, but it was more mix of panic and happiness. Wait, he had to plan a date with Nejire. Well, he was going out with his class to the mall tomorrow, so he could pick an outfit along with some heavier wrist and ankle weights, and probably a vest weight as well. Eventually he got the screaming out. It took a few minutes. He had a much longer workout routine that day. Izuku stretched his arms, getting out of bed. He was kind of regretting the longer workout, but not really. It'd pay off. Regardless, he dragged himself out of bed and went downstairs, making breakfast for himself as some other classmates began to trickle downstairs. Chucking the cereal to Todoroki, who proceeded to add water to it, he made light conversation as everyone seemed excited to, or at least accepting of, the class social outing today. The only exception was Todoroki, who was going to visit his mother. Even so, he conveyed his apologies but was forgiven easily. Izuku waved Todoroki off, before heading up to his own room and grabbing his buying list. Mostly weights, some clothes, maybe another pair of red shoes, just in case, and probably another couple packs of pens and notebooks. Rolling his left shoulder as he prepped a backpack, feeling a satisfying pop as he proceeded to do the same with his right shoulder. He chucked the backpack to the door and started changing, wearing a plain shirt and pair of shorts, as he double-checked he had everything, and went downstairs to wait for the others. First out was Yoirozu, who generally seemed bubbly and happy to be able to go shopping. She doesn't really get out much to do something such as this, Izuku thought, as he approached her. Hey Yoirozu. Oh, greetings Izuku. How are you? I'm looking forward to today. It'll be good to get to know everyone better. Indeed. I'm wondering if there will be any stores where I can get some anime posters. I'm really getting into it. Well, I'm sure Koch-chan would be happy to help. Happy to help with what, you little fucker? Bakugo broke into the conversation, Yoirozu rolling her eyes, and Izuku just smiled innocently, helping Yoirozu around the mall. The girl in question blushed when she realized how that sounded, and Bakugo twitched slightly, before skiing and walking away. That's a yes, Izuku whispered, trying to hold in his own laughter. Yoirozu blushed more as Izuku held his sides, but Todoroki came down not too long after giving him someone else to talk to. Kirishima came down as well, dragging a sparking Bakugo along behind him, as many of the rest of the class trickled downstairs, some groggy, whilst others were wide awake. Together, they trekked outside towards the bus stop, having already received Aizawa-sensei's permission to go out. Eventually, they arrived at the Kiyashi shopping mall, where the class ended up splitting into groups. Mina went with Toru, Tsuyu and Uraraka went to get bug spray, well, for Uraraka anyway, and soon enough it was just Izuku, Bakugo and Yoirozu. Smirking, he bid farewell to the two, telling them to have fun as he went off on his own. He may or not have smirked more when he could almost feel Yoirozu's blush from about a dozen meters away, and hearing Bakugo scream bastard. He made his way to the first store he was meant to be in, picking up his training gear. Adjustable wrist and ankle weights, with a base weight of 50 kilograms each. He was debating getting the vest weight, but figured he could do that next time. He could only carry so much in his bag. Stepping out of the store, after paying, he could feel the extra 200 kilograms in his bag. Taking a moment to readjust his posture and check his list, he wasn't paying enough attention to his surroundings as he looked down. That was his first mistake. Without warning, an arm wrapped tightly around his shoulders. Hey, you're that kid from the sports festival, aren't you? A voice rasped. Initially he was unable to identify it. One of many, sir, may I ask what you would like? Izuku replied, tensing slightly. Bright one, aren't you? There are many things I would like. The voice said, Izuku realizing who it was. But of you, I just want to talk. Izuku, wasn't it? Yes, what do you want, Shigaraki? Izuku said, trying not to shake as he felt 4 fingers grasp his neck, the 5th floating dangerously close. Just a chat. Come with me. Act like we're pals, and no one gets hurt. Shigaraki told him. Someone would stop you. Izuku told him. Probably, but how many people do you think I could kill beforehand? 20. 30. Maybe I'll even hunt down that black-haired girl and ash blonde on their little date. Izuku looked around, before speaking. Well, where shall we start? Good choice, kid. Let's sit down first. Shigaraki said, dragging Izuku along with him over to a set of benches, in a quieter part of the mall. Izuku, tensely, sat down and considered his options. He could electrocute Shigaraki, but it would be illegal quirk usage, and whilst it would probably be allowed to slide, chances are in a reflex his final finger would end up twitching onto his neck. Yeah, that wasn't an option. He could try to physically force them off, but Shigaraki probably had superior speed if the USJ was anything to go by, and Izuku would be nothing more than a pile of dust. Another no. That only led to one solution. So what would you like to talk about? Izuku asked, Shigaraki spacing out briefly. Well, you see, ever since Stain, my League of Villains has been getting less and less attention. Even on the night of his downfall, when we released several Nomu, but all the media wants to talk about is Stain, Stain, Stain. So tell me, Izuku, why him and not me? Why him when he failed, but my league is still out there? Shigaraki asked, tightening his grip whenever his rival's name came up. Wasn't Stain with you guys? Izuku asked tentatively. No, our ideals were in direct opposition of each other. Shigaraki replied, loosening his grip slightly. Well, I think that's the answer to your question, Izuku started, taking Shigaraki's decision to keep a loose grip as a sign to continue. Stain had ideals that people could see, whereas people aren't really sure about yours. But we both just want to destroy the things we dislike. Doesn't that basically make us the same? Shigaraki countered, just staring blankly. In a way, yes, but at the same time, no. Izuku gulped, before going on, I may not agree with Stain, but I understand him. We both look up to All Might as an ideal. At the mention of All Might, Shigaraki began tightening his grasp. The 5th finger got dangerously close, and Izuku would be incredibly worried about suffocating if Shigaraki couldn't just kill him with a light tap as is. All Might, Shigaraki rasped thoughtfully, Izuku beginning to feel slightly lightheaded. Of course. It's All Might's fault. The way society is today. Izuku couldn't particularly fault that. Whilst it wasn't exactly the bad thing Shigaraki saw it to be, All Might was the one who set society on course to be peaceful, standing as a pillar for society to hold everything and everyone up. Whilst there were issues with this, it definitely had its benefits. Well, I guess, Izuku managed to get out, despite his quickly diminishing air, but people followed Stain, not because of his connection to All Might, but what he wanted from society, not just destruction. Izuku said, being strangled in between words. Black spots were beginning to appear in his vision. Shigaraki looked away thoughtfully. So, an ideal and All Might. That's what sets us apart. Yeah. Izuku managed to get. His vision was almost gone, and at this point has started trying to use his quirk to power his lungs, trying to force more air through. It was only hardly enough. Boy nerd. Who the hell is that? A voice cut through the air, drawing Izuku's and Shigaraki's attention. Wait. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you were here with friends. I'll see you again soon, Izuku. Shigaraki said, releasing Izuku and quietly slipping back into the unassuming crowd. Bakugo was at Izuku's side in a moment, the green-haired boy currently coughing madly as he tried to recover from the strangling. Yorozu also appeared, a phone in hand as she dialed authorities and an ambulance for Izuku. Thanks, Izuku asked, before being scolded by Bakugo for trying to talk. Stop wasting your breath, you little shit, and focus on not passing out for now. Bakugo cut Izuku off before he could apologize or be more grateful. Hours later and Izuku was in hospital, being talked to by a very buff All Might, not concerned Aizawa-sensei and Detective Tsukauchi. All Might, I'm so sorry, I accidentally made Shigaraki believe it's partly your fault. Izuku said, bowing whilst sitting on the hospital bed. It is quite alright, young Izuku. You did very well considering the situation. And I believe he seems to have some sort of grudge against me as is, so I do not blame you. All Might said, ruffling Izuku's hair to reassure the boy. Izuku just nodded whilst still looking down. Problem child, Aizawa-sensei spoke for the first time, startling him slightly. You did well. You didn't panic, remain within bounds of the law and your own capabilities. You didn't make the situation worse and kept everyone safe by keeping his attention. Additionally, we were able to figure out some more things regarding Kurogiri's quirk based on this information. Aizawa-sensei also ruffled Izuku's hair to emphasize the point. Izuku nodded, a little brighter this time as Detective Tsukauchi went over the notes. Tsukauchi began talking about the part where Shigaraki began to initially tighten the choke, mostly to get notes on Shigaraki's quirk, when the door burst open. Izuku. The person yelled, a nurse behind them looking nervous as they stood behind them. They just came in and showed a hero license demanding to see Izuku. Sorry, the nurse said as they bowed. Hahaha, it is quite alright. Young Hato is a powerful third year at our school who is close friends with young Izuku, so it is just fine. All Might announced, giving a thumbs up. Nejire proceeded to launch herself at Izuku and wrap him in a tight hug, and Izuku hugged her back in more of an instinct, with the teachers and detective quietly leaving the room. Are you okay? Did he hurt you much? Do you want water? Sleep? Food? Books? Nejire asked, releasing him from the hug. I'm okay now, Nejire. Just around my neck, Izuku started, gesturing to the bandages on his neck, and I'm really sorry to do this, but for tomorrow, can we wind the plans back a little? It's fine. You just got traumatized, I'll take care of our date. Nejire said, causing Izuku to blush when he remembered exactly what it was. How does she deliver a line like that with so much energy, Izuku thought, as Nejire began rambling about various ideas. But don't worry about it. I'll figure something chill out, okay? Yeah. Thank you, Nejire. Izuku responded, smiling at her. Nejire wrapped her arms around Izuku again, and he couldn't help his content sigh. This was much nicer than the stress of dealing with Shigaraki. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want a next part of this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification, and also check out the other videos that I have created, and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.